Welcome, everyone, to the main event 150. There's a good milestone for us to meet, 150. Delighted to have Christiaan Ortiz with us today, my official Mexican brother. Have been good, close friends for a long time and literally call each other brother. Christiaan is a descendant of who, Christiaan?
I am the great grandson of Pancho Villa, the Mexican revolutionary.
All right. So it's in your blood, obviously, based on what you're doing now. Anyway, what I usually do is I start the event by talking about the AI news, and then we'll get into talking about you and Justice AI GPT, and about what we all need to be doing about the situation of today with all the us and them and all the promoted hate that's going on. Okay, in the AI news, there's actually 11 things today. Ever since the first of the year, we've just been getting tons of news about different programs. Over in the comment section, I posted a link to both Evolving AI and Eugenio Ferrio. He is in Italy, and both of these LinkedIn pages are daily putting AI news there. And most of the things that I'm going to talk about here are from either of those two places. Evolving AI posted AI videos are now impossible to tell if they are real or not. Last week, Kling 3.0 was recognized as the best AI video program. This week, Cdance 2.0. Cdance is out of China. Related to Cdance, there's another post there that Hollywood is officially cooked with China's Cdance 2.0. Claude for Windows is now on par with the Mac version. And I want to tell you what I did with Claude last week. This was, I found, extremely impressive and extremely helpful. I had tried to do this with ChatGTP, and it procrastinated for a week and finally admitted it wasn't able to do it. What I was able to do in 2 hours with Claude was I sent it a spreadsheet format with all of the things that I normally list for business expenses and other things, and 12-month columns, everything blank. And what I was able to do was to send it quarterly, 3 months worth of my bank statements from my business account. And it was able to enter everything into the spreadsheet accurately, correctly, with the starting balance and the ending balance, all in agreement with the document. It took 2 hours to go through the 4 quarters, and instead of me spending days trying to put this into a spreadsheet. It's all secure, it's private for me, and it is not something that anybody else can get into, and it worked out fantastic. Free picks workflow that anyone is capable of using is one of the links in the comment section of today's event. Comfy UI Action Director converts videos into 3D character action. Higgsfield Update Cinema Studio 2.0 is now live. Hedra Avatar creates perfect lip sync and half-hour uncut videos. Another article, Just Dub It, the AI dubbing breakthrough that rewrites lip sync with a lightweight LoRa built on LTX2. Minimax M2.5 is live and free for a limited time. And now, related to today's discussion, there's 2 things here. On Monday, Miranak Sharma, the Anthropic's AI safety lead, resigned, saying in a public letter that the world is in peril after a mix of global risks. And that's why he retired, because he was the safety leader and he didn't feel that he could do what was needed. And then the second thing related to today's discussion, and in the why category, Meta has patented an AI that can post on your behalf on social media, learning your writing style and frequent topics, and then post it for you, even after you've died. Why, people? I guess it's for those people that like to happy heavenly birthday to my sister-in-law or whatever. Why? Why would anybody even want to do that? I mean, we've got enough problems with fake news and fake postings. I mean, would you really like to have a letter from your mother telling you that she misses you? I mean, enough of this.
Hmm.
Let us talk to Christiaan. Christiaan a while back has developed this chat GPT program called Justice AI. And I remember when we were first talking about this and you were talking about trying to get some local hospitals or businesses to try this out and see, if you could get some people to do that. And I said to you, Christiaan, this is much bigger than that. You've got to promote this thing widely, and this has got to have a tremendous amount of application. And I think a lot has happened in that time period. And so I'd love it if you would tell us about the program and what's been happening with that and with you.
Absolutely. Well, let me say thank you so much for having me here, and it's great to see everybody. And this is a very necessary conversation to have, right? With where we're headed in AI. Excuse me. Just for a little bit of context, also for those who, if this is the first time you're seeing my face, I am historically a decolonial social scientist, which means I study coloniality. I study the world before, during, and after colonization. And I'm a technologist. And so I've been in social media marketing and technology for pretty much 20 years. And as AI came to be, I was invited to attend a beta testing for ChatGPT back in August of 2023 before they were releasing Chat with 3.5. And so I got invited to do beta testing, and as I was trying it out, I was speaking to this AI with two things in mind. Like AI was going to change the world almost immediately, like when the internet came out. Uh, and then B, as I was speaking to this GPT, I understood that there was so much bias in it when I was talking to it, especially with my history and activism and my studies. I knew what to ask, and I could immediately understand that it didn't understand my lived experience as an Afro-Indigenous person with my lived experiences. And so it kind of raised a red flag for me. And immediately I asked the question, how do I build something that doesn't do this? And it led me down a rabbit hole into building and collaborating with over 560 decolonial specialists around the world who each contributed to our data set. And we build the world's first decolonial data set. I say all that to say those are giant words. Ultimately, if we understand that all of our harmful social biases come from European colonialism, that they're the byproduct of the system, then the antithesis was to operationalize a decolonial data set that identified where these biases came from. And so that was the overall gist of how we put this tool together. Um, and when I first showed Al, I remember your mind was a little blown when we were talking about how to identify biases and provide that perspective. And you were 100% right. It was more than just a local tool just to take to local businesses. Now I have 188 clients around the world, all in social impact sectors, lawmakers in the UN, lawyers, doctors, physicians in the South, in the States, people in Australia, Canada, the UK using it to create unbelievable content that resonates with a broader audience. Because language is power and language is connectivity. And if we have the language to build better processes for across our industries, then I think that that's what AI can do. I am not a tech bro by all means. I am very aware of I'm very aware of the chaos that's going on with AI. And in the same breath, I see the changes that we are making with AI. So I live with this pluriversal truth of yes, there's chaos, and yes, there's no regulation, and yes, AI could be misused. But at the same time, I'm a firm believer that the more we have these conversations about building what ethical AI looks like, the better we are in building a safer future.
Christian, one of the things that I was very impressed with in what you've created is the program does what it does in a non-threatening way. You know,
Yes. Yes. So for in doing this work, right, when we talk about decolonial work, and I'm helping people connect the dots on how colonialism manifests within us, those conversations mostly never feel safe for individuals, right? Like when we talk about race and we talk about politics and we talk about all of these things, safety and trust are the number one components that we have to put in place as the foundation of a conversation, especially if you're going to be talking to me about it. I have to meet you where you're at, you meet me where I'm at, and we figure it out. But again, having this operationalized through an AI, now for the first time ever in life, we have a tool that you can sit with and ask it all the questions you want, and it's safe. It doesn't point the finger. It doesn't say, I can't believe you asked me that, or I can't, that's offensive, or whatever. It avoids all of that, and it just gives you a historically accurate, scientific, with cited sources response to help you navigate these challenging questions. And so, again, I think that in terms when we talk about AI in this sense too, even in the language model, just what a gift, huh? To be able to give somebody safety and clarity and verbiage for the first time ever in history about topics that perhaps we were just not educated on because that's just by design, or we just have chosen not to do it, or for whatever reason. So, yeah, it's a really good place to be.
so the thing is that what this does is it examines things like uh, how does a hospital deal with its staff? How does it deal with its patients? And doing so in a equitable and conscious way that you're treating them like an equal.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And so one of the things that I realized coming into this is I didn't realize how much bias was an everyone problem. And I don't mean that in a bad way. We've inherited the system that we didn't ask for, and we've been conditioned to carry biases because of our media and the news and education and the way that we've been educated by design. And so bias just lives within all of us. And
And a
it's
long history.
Absolutely. And it's incredibly insidious, right? It's almost invisible. Like we can't even tell when we're being biased, or a lot of times that we can't tell when we're saying things that are miss the mark at times that could be offensive potentially too. And so imagine the amounts of bias that are embedded in your policies and procedures at your workplace, no matter what your industry is. If you're a medical professional, forget about it. Medical bias is through the roof. And so being able to have a tool like this to perform AI bias audits has been my number one key takeaway for all industries. And so we perform AI bias audits on policies and procedures and documents, and even the way medical professionals diagnose and their intake forms and diagnosis charts. I mean, we even meet the requirements for like HIPAA and all of these security reasons too. So we make sure that we're not sharing too much personal information. But uh, there's a lot of value that comes in with having a tool like this. And what's funny, Al, is that I built it in ChatGPT. I did that on purpose because they have the most pretty much the most flexible offerings for individuals, even though it can be limited to your point, like what you took Anthropic and you did that paperwork of yours in Claude because Claude could do it better. Um, I programmed it into ChatGPT because they have the largest data set, but they have the most biased data set. So it only made sense that I would decolonize the data set from ChatGPT over any other language model. But I can build it also in like Gemini and Claude and things like that. It's just a different infrastructure. Um, but it's a great tool to have if you're using language models on the daily, to be able to have an output. Like if you use Claude only, but you want to check the biases within Claude, you can check it with Justice AI GPT. So, I mean, in the spirit of not having too many tools, I mean, I get that too, but um, yeah, it's a very interesting offering, I think. That's been paying off for lots of people.
That's great. Before we get off the direct subject of Justice AI, I would like to open it up to questions from people here that if they would like to ask things about the program and about what you're doing. Eric, go ahead.
Could you demonstrate how it works?
Sure. Al, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let me share it right here. I'll give you a quick example. Let me know if you can see my screen.
We can.
All right. So, again, it's a custom GPT that I programmed into ChatGPT. Um, it gives you a couple of conversational starters here. The cool thing about also when you're creating images with the language model like ChatGPT, if you are, let's say, a woman or a person of the global majority, or you have an intersectional identity, or perhaps you want an image that captures your gender, a lot of times, like if I was to say, create me an image um, of a graphic designer, ChatGPT will normally just automatically create you an image, and usually it would either be it'll choose for you, right? It's either going to be a white woman or it's going to be um, a white man, and regardless of whatever. And to no offense to anybody, this is just how it's programmed, right? So representation is very difficult. It's also now running through 5.2, which is it's in thinking model, so it takes a little bit longer to process the back end of what your request is, and it's not as immediate as the 4.0 legacy model. Um, and then, like now, you see it almost working like DeepSeek, where you could see how it's thinking about things here, and you can just see if you can click answer now. Again, these tools are not perfect, so they're sometimes glitchy, but if you can work through them and have the patience for them, you'll eventually get what you need. And so now it's wanting to act a little wonky, of course, as we try to demonstrate. But my prompt to here, if you can read it, says create me an image of a graphic designer, and what it should do ultimately is, and what I may have to do is just refresh my screen here. Yep. So what it says is before I generate it, what gender and what race and ethnicity do you want your graphic designer to be? So now you have an ability to automatically have the representation there without it assuming anything, and it gives you it gives you this opportunity to just set the stage of what you want to develop there. Another thing that you can do here when we talk about bias audits is you can upload a document. I've got this document, Alberta Health Primary Healthcare Community Profiles, that I'm going to upload here. And then what we would normally do if I was to bring this into a professional setting, or if you were someone who adopted Justice AI and you have documents from your workload that you wanted to upload as well, you would say, I need to perform a bias audit on this document. And you can word this a multitude of ways. This is just for a blanket showing right now, but do this to identify all harmful biases, please. Always nice to my AIs so they don't turn Terminator on me. Um, and then what it does, it like anything else, like if you've used ChatGPT, you can analyze documents left to right to do a number of things. But what this does now is it breaks down all of the invisible biases and the ones that are very in your face as well. And so here it says there's framing bias. The report treats health as an individual attribute, not a structurally produced outcome. And it gives you the details about said bias, measurement bias, population covered. Um, and we can run a number of bias tests. I could say run a bias audit through a diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and accessibility intersectional lens. Um, Oh, it's still giving me a bias audit here. So, again, it's very helpful. And a lot of times, the other beautiful thing about it is that if the language is something that is unfamiliar to you, you can just copy and paste it into the chat and say, "Can you break this down to me and explain this to me like I'm five or someone who doesn't understand or who isn't in this space to understand what's going on?" And it'll break it down to you in simple terms, right? So it's a really helpful tool. So you can think about if you're an educator, if you're a nonprofit writing grants, language is also important. There's a lot of language that's being flagged in the states right now because of the Trump administration, and so there's a lot of funding that's not being given federally, and these nonprofits still have to survive. So right now we're creating language modules for nonprofits and for people who are raising who are grant writing for funds. So it's a very multifaceted approach into how to identify bias, how to navigate language that prevents certain things from happening. Um,
Can you ask it to make recommendations of changes?
I'm sorry.
Can you ask it to give you recommendations for how to change things?
Yes, in terms of the biases that it identifies.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to stop this narration right here. Given all of the biases you have found, can you now give me uh, recommendations on how to remedy or fix this? Remedy or fix these? A lot of times too, it automatically gives you the issues that it found, and then it would also give you, like also in your prompt, you could say identify the biases and then also give me a recommendation of how to fix this. And so it'll say start by rewriting the document's purpose statement so it names structural causality as a primary frame. And also, what I remind people too is that remember that AI is not a replacement of your brilliance, is an amplification of your brilliance. So you should never take the AI's response as the be all ever. And so it still requires our human input to make sure that what it's saying makes sense. Obviously, I think what happened when language models came to be is we got super excited. We took it at face value before we understood what was really at play. And not to say that anybody in this room has done that, but I'm sure we've known somebody over time who's done that. So again, it's a tool to amplify your brilliance and co-create whatever it is that you're looking to co-create with. Again, it's not a perfect tool. It is a GPT. It is still built within a colonial architecture of ChatGPT, so sometimes biases might slip. However, when you push back on it, if you catch it slipping, it's not going to double down or gaslight you. It's going to say you're absolutely right. I should have caught that, and let's do better. And that's become fewer and fewer um, of a reality as this tool has been in existence. But as you can see, it gives you a very robust example of how to correct things with language and whatnot as well. So,
Brigida
um,
has a question, Christian.
absolutely.
Go ahead, Brigida.
Okay. I don't know. At first, maybe we can throw it in here because at first I love what you have been doing, and this is really we need it. But when I'm talking, I see how you look at that, and I think you are on it. But I see a difference between biases and belief system. And
Hmm.
just to give you an example, to me, I mean, my life philosophy is that the ego is good, but our current belief system is that ego is bad. And all the conversation, no matter what it is, ending up from that fundamental of our belief system. So do you handle or do you see it the same way, or do you have another thought about, with your expertise, the difference between belief system and biases?
Yeah, I do. I think that well, I do agree with you. I think that there's multiple truths that can exist when we're having these conversations, right? And we have to be very careful that the tool doesn't replicate absolutism. It should never say that this is absolutely the way things are, right? Because then we get muddled into a whole other field where this thing becomes problematic, because then it's like, according to who, right? And so, um,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
what we do here is we're very intentional about when it provides a response that it can provide the historical receipts to prove the foundational power structures beneath the words,
Mm.
so that it can identify and connect the dots of where these thought processes even came from. A lot of times it'll point out the Enlightenment era. A lot of times it'll point out the patriarchy and misogyny that's been ultimately every issue that it points out is able to identify and explain that these were systems that sometimes existed before colonization, but European colonization, operationalized them through law and religion and through systems. And so we look at it from a really a perspective of um, yes, your point of view can be true, but also we need to take a look at this perspective as well. And so it's not about
Yeah.
who's right or wrong. It's about this is where the bias is and this is where it comes from, if that makes sense. So it's not really to cover our own butts, but it's just to really have a fuller picture of a
Yeah.
perspective that we've never had.
Yeah.
Lisette,
No, I think it sounds.
go ahead, Brigetta.
No,
Brigetta.
no, I say that's super good, and to have people who is in the foreground, like you are right now, to really point this out and help people to think outside their own belief system or be aware of that there is a belief system. So I admire your work, just so you know it. So thank you for your answer, and makes me happy.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Lisette, you asked a question in the comment section. You want to ask it verbally?
Sure. I was just wondering, I'm trying to understand how, when you build the GPTs on OpenAI, how that protects the information that we're generating. And I guess I'm speaking personally as I'm looking at it all. And when you are building, let's say, the resistance, or you're doing those types of things, like how, when the whole thing is being, obviously, like OpenAI is does not care about guardrails. They're just blatantly like, we started it, we're not focusing, and it's too far gone at this point.
That's right.
So what are your thoughts on that as we create these things?
I agree with you 100%. I think I walk on eggshells daily because there is a level of carelessness that exists that we cannot ignore with these large language model companies, especially OpenAI, when you see who they're funding and you see what they're putting their processes in, which is two things are true in this situation. I am now in the process of raising funds to have it built out of OpenAI so that it can be finally its own language model, which would be fantastic. And I won't have to worry about anybody else trying to co-opt it and do things to it on the back end. Right now, I have also protected my framework in a way where, in the spirit of the quote, we use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house.
Right.
It's a decolonial tool. However, I've protected my framework and all of my IP through colonial frameworks, right? So I've had to figure out a way to put wording and trademarks and all of the legal language that protects the data as well. For the user who's using it, I could tell you that because it's a custom GPT that I have, I've selected, if you could see right here in the bottom of the chat screen, it says OpenAI doesn't use Justice AI GPT workspace data to train its models.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I'm also in the space where I don't trust you, OpenAI, right? With all the things that you're doing. Like, who's to say that you don't leak my data? So, what I always encourage my users to do is to ensure that you don't use personal information. Try not to use names, try not to use specifics that can identify people to any perspective, and also be mindful about how you use it, right? So a lot of times the way we ask questions could be super controversial, and it could flag the system and perhaps even send data to OpenAI. And I'm going to live in this reality that this is a possibility, and so there's always risks about these things. And so yes, and somebody even said if you click the thumbs up or down button, it ignores the safety setting and it sends the data to OpenAI. And a lot of people don't know that. Same thing happens with all the other language models. And so there's a lot of education that we have to put ourselves through to understand the inner workings of these things. But once you get all of those questions answered and you know what's at stake, you know how to better use it and be more responsible with it. I've created also through my framework a number of GPTs. I also have Soma here, and Soma is my structural operations for medical advocacy. So this is a part of my Justice AI suite that solves for medical bias. And when you talk about medical things, especially about yourself as a patient or if you're a doctor, then you know there's a lot of security concerns that happen there as well. And
Yeah, like I have no idea how they're getting around HIPAA. I mean, I know what they're saying they're doing, but at some
right.
point you're trusting that they put together back the name with the person inside the system. And I'm just sort of thinking like, how are they even looking for hallucinations when they do that at a hospital enterprise level? Like, how do they know that the right diagnostics are going together with the right note on the other side of that? So yeah, I saw that you did that, and at some point I'd like to have a conversation on that because as I talk to healthcare organizations, or I have thoughts too, I
Yes.
really kind of want to speak to that, like what they could do for the bias, because I don't even, there's so much bias. Like, I don't even know how we could even use large language model in healthcare because we didn't even start studying women until the 90s. So, like, I don't even know what they're judging everything on. Like, it's barely there, and now it's getting such pushback in the little window that we even got it there. So, that whole
Yeah.
thing is really interesting.
No, for sure. And if you can see here with Soma, I just said, hi, Soma. She's prompted to already say, before we go further, a quick privacy note. If you're sharing anything clinical, don't include direct identifiers like names, exact date of birth, medical record numbers, et cetera, et cetera. And then what I've also programmed it to do that is if a medical provider, like if I was to say, I am a medical doctor for families, then she'll be like, great, then let's talk about what you need and blah, 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 blah. If I slip up as a medical provider and give patient information or I give something, it should shut it down. It should also say, we're not going to use this bit of information and what have you. So when we talk about identifying bias in these systems too, we have to talk about the number of guardrails that have to be put in place that most language models don't have, which means that we really have to think about what are language model companies not doing today that we can do to ensure that we have the ability to do that. And so, um, the to your point as well is that you're 100% right. It's like studies about women alone have really not become mainstream until the 90s. But the reality is what I found, which was completely interesting, is that we have had decolonial scientists and medical professionals writing tons of literature on these topics since the 1800s. And of course,
Mhm.
because they were never prioritized over Western centric, Eurocentric data, they were kind of just set to the side and ignored. And so now when we have these GPTs programmed through all of this data, each contributor has contributed over 30 years of knowledge in their field, right? So we're talking about medical, lawmaking, media, what have you. Now you get a more robust picture. And now we have things like Soma who can help identify medical conditions. If a doctor has a patient who's perhaps an elder African American woman or an elder Latina or an elder Asian woman, they have specific things happening in their bodies that really aren't popular or documented well enough in Western data. So now they have this ability to say, to have a GPT say, well, let's take a look at what your patient, lineage looks like, and ask these questions and ask about their diets. And because of their diets, this is the conditions that this can bring up. The bias audits that come out with this thing are absolutely stellar. So I am just going to say that we are in a place to see how much this can advance and how much good this can do
Mhm.
in the coming years, and I'm excited to see it. Because I think that ethical AI over the next 5 to 6 years is going to be a demand unlike anything we've ever seen before.
Let's hope.
And yeah, let's hope. Let's hope. I'm really leading the charge in this because I want to believe that with all of my heart. And the more people that I talk to, and Lizette, you and I have talked, and we've talked to so many other people about these things. I think that this is what people want, and I think ultimately people power will come through 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've also want to say that um, my tool is a living contradiction. When we talk about a decolonial tool, you would assume that it would be free and it's a pricing model. We're a business, but at the same time, a portion of those funds go back to the communities that we
Mhm.
serve as well. So, in order to have a decolonial tool, you have to get back to your organizations as well. So, and nobody's priced out of it right now. There's different pricing models so that people don't have to break the bank just to have an ethical tool.
I think Al, your thing's off, your microphone.
Christiaan, before we get into a more general discussion about society, I'd like to know, the kinds of reactions you're getting from people that you're working with that are using your services now.
It's super interesting. You can imagine that for somebody who's never seen anything like this, it could be very confronting. It could be very in their face. But at the same time, I try to approach people who are already doing the work. And even the ones who are doing the work, when they see these responses from Justice AI, their minds are blown because they just can't imagine that a GPT can understand the work that they're doing or their perspectives. And so I get a mixed emotion of responses when I get people who email me and say, this tool has changed my life. It's helped me connect with my lineage when I'm doing my genealogy work. To I got into a 1 hour argument with Justice AI last night, and it completely opened my eyes into thinking of something unlike anything I've ever had thought of before. To yeah, this tool just makes all the sense, and like I've got a mixed emotions, all positive though. Ultimately, I've never had anybody to say your tool is the devil, and I never want to use it again.
Well, if you would stop sharing your screen, we can get everybody's faces more sizable here.
Absolutely.
I'd like to do just a little bit of a setup here of what I'd like us to move into, and that is more evident today than well, I can't say it's more than ever before because we always have Hitler in mind. The idea of setting up an enemy so that it's us and them, so that we are superior to someone else or some other group of people. That is so prevalent in what we're seeing today. I sent you a couple of articles, and I'm just going to quote from both of them very briefly here. One, of course, is Warren Buffett, who's known for his Buffett rules. And the one thing that I copied down was in looking for people to hire, you look for three qualities: integrity, intelligence, and energy. And if they don't have the first, the other two will kill you.
Mm.
The second thing is at the end of January this year, Cardinal Fernandez, prefect of the dicastery of the doctrine of the faith for the Catholic Church, was speaking to the doctrine of the faith, and he said, whereas arrogance inhibits true conversation, the virtue of humility produces dialogue, not a monologue. Humility helps us to restore the idea that there is yet something to be learned from somebody else. So, what can we do, folks? We have to do things. We have to do things in our everyday life, but we also have to be addressing the reality of what's happening in the world right now. And I'm open for people's thoughts on this subject, because it's just too important for us to just ignore. Christiaan, maybe you could start with your thoughts, since you really, well, Brigida raised her hand. Brigida, go
For
ahead.
sure.
Yeah, I can maybe some philosophical thing, but I think what's going on in the world right now is a result of that is shifting, because we are shifting to the worthy of individuality, since we have a crowd with AI now can have their voice heard. They can have what they are doing explained. So in small islands, maybe it's not this wide yet, but the establishment, the power structure, wherever it is in the world, is really threatened right now. And when that's happened, I think the conflicts is escalate. So I think this is a proof of a movement, and it can go really, really fast depending on the people like Chris and all other weird ones who are here. If you take the stand for what you know and the preparation, and I think you, Christiaan, you are also a really early adapter when it comes to AI, so you understand how it works from the bottom. And if you walk your own talk and teach and do what you do now, you can teach more people to use AI for good. And then you understand each individual, no matter where you are in the world, understand their own value of their own thoughts and ideas. And that is something that will shake the world. And it maybe sounds like it's an utopia. It was for 2 years ago. It's not anymore, especially not in the race with AI. We have to see, and I get really scary thoughts, kind of goosebumps, because we know we cannot hide behind it's not possible anymore, because it is. And it depends on, as you said, on each individuals. That was just my spontaneous thoughts right now.
Christiaan, Brigida is particularly interested in biases towards people that the world, the normal world, as we talk about in the Weird Ones event every week, have biases against things that people who have what they call disabilities are being, not being recognized for their capabilities. The other thing that is a very important thing to a number of people that are here today is the biases towards women. And these are really as important a subject as the fact that we have people who are building enemy lists and trying to be vindictive. So, Christiaan, I'd appreciate your thoughts on this, because you spend a lot of time on this in your life.
Yeah, for sure. I could speak to some of those. I'm ADHD and neurodivergent, and I didn't find this out until I was 33. And when I found it out through my doctor, I started breaking down in tears, because it made my entire life make sense. Because I was othered for so many years. I was in rooms where I was just seen as the weird one, so different, and you didn't understand. And you become so alienated in society with carrying something that you don't even have the words to explain. And so that alone kind of gave me a perspective on putting my feet in the shoes of others, to help them understand, like, how does society see you? How do they not see you? Right. And so, Brigida, to your point, there's two things that I want to talk about here, especially to your point, Al, as well. But Brigida, you had a very, you're absolutely right. When we're looking at the world shifting right now, the power structure is threatened, but it's not because AI is inherently liberatory, right? It's threatened because legitimacy is fragile. And now we're having more conversations collectively to really understand what's at play as a system in society. And I think for the first time in a long time, if not ever, society is awakening to the realities of how we operate as a system. We're understanding our lived experiences systemically rather than just individualistic view. And these conversations matter. And so, um, uh, Al, I'm going to ask you to reframe your question here because my neurospiciness is it's kicking me all over the place. But to kind of stay in the tunnel of what we're talking about,
Biases,
understand.
biases towards women.
Yeah. So when we're now taking a look at patriarchy as a system, right? When we're actually examining these things and having conversations of where are these biases actually coming from? How long, patriarchy has existed since the dawn of time. But when you start implementing patriarchy as law and you start like we've seen the rights of women being taken away over the last several years systemically. We saw an election lost because people didn't want a woman president for or whatever the argument is. And I'm not trying to make general assumptions, but we are seeing patriarchy and these biases against women amplified in a level that we've never seen before because of Brigida's point. I think is because the system is shifting. The powers that be are so threatened now, and the amount of knowledge that we're intaking with AI is educating people at mass scale. And I think, again, to Brigida's point, I think that we have to collectively work together to build this movement. And I look at AI, honestly, in an ethical sense, as a grassroots movement. So I think if we all position ourselves with the ability to say, hey, you know what, there's a community out here who thinks the way that I do, who wants to threaten the power structures, who wants to think outside the box to protect women, to protect our queer folk, to protect our neurodivergent folk. This is the time now more than ever, right? I'm going to say this and then I'll end my tangent. When I build something like Justice AI and I see the positive change that it's making, how can I literally not picture a future where we can dismantle all these oppressive systems at mass scale when I've done when the work that we've done in 2 years alone has made such substantial change, right? And so really I think it's a matter of community and power. And Al, I have to thank you so much for opening spaces like this with this audience. Because I think it really, really matters. I think we plant enough seeds and the garden will grow.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think this is a topic that needs to be talked about more than just once. I want to tell you about a terrific neighbor I have across the street. This man comes over in the wintertime when they've got snow on the ground, and he brings his snowblower over, and he does my driveway and my sidewalk, and he does the elderly couple in the adjacent condo in our building, their driveway also. I have gotten to the point where I just have a balance problem bad enough that I actually ask him if he would every Wednesday take my trash and recyclable cans out to the street, and then on Thursday after they've been emptied to put them back. And he's doing that. And this is a good neighbor. This is a good friend. He has a Trump flag on his front lawn. I can't talk politics to him because I don't want to ruin the friendship. I also respect the fact that he has a right to his point of view. But I don't know if he would feel that way about my point of view. That's something I'm dealing with on a very regular basis. I live in a county in York, Pennsylvania, and this area is very conservative. I'm not just talking politics. I'm talking about the Catholic Church in this diocese as well is more conservative than other places I've been. You want to be able to educate people about, how things could be better. I remember when I was in New Jersey in a men's group, and I would bring up something in the meeting about the way we should be treating certain people that are not being treated properly. Oh, we don't get into politics. We don't talk about politics here. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Brigida, do you have your hand up again?
Yes, just shortly to point out, because what the issue you are talking about now, it's in those belief system that there is a right and wrong, the dualistical system we have all over the world, that something needs to be good and something needs to be bad. And I mean, it's really so obvious. Me from Sweden, I see the political system in the US, you need to be red or blue and you need to take side or you don't talk about it. But that is what is going away. We're moving away from it. And the problem is not what kind of party or what religion you have. It's about the consciousness, the awareness of yourself. And I know Steve knows everything about. So people, where we have to look at is, where are the people's level of self-awareness and self-leadership? And we have to start to educate those who are more willing, at least open, who already are self-aware, but don't have the self-confidence to speak out. So we have to stop seeing the world in dualistic thinking. And already from the beginning, yin and yang, it was something that was together. It was never divided. And we have to go back to that part. And then we will disappear. And then you can have different values. You can believe in different systems. You can believe in different things, and that's okay. But not until we see there is no enemy. And that's scared of the establishment right now, because that is where the control is. You have to go be good and bad, and the whole economy is built around that there is an enemy for someone. And as long as you can feed the enemy in people or create an enemy, you will be the winner, because that's how the old system is working. And we are moving away from that. And that's why it's what I call the weird ones, those with already has a critical thinking that can lead the way and see there is possible to be united, even if you are coming from totally different point in life. That was my little preach. Thank you. And thank you to you too, Al, for.
Thank you, Brigida.
I think that there's not a religion out there that is saying we should ignore the poor, or that we shouldn't treat others as if they were our brothers and sisters. But yet religions have notoriously not lived up to that, Linda, go ahead, please.
Just really, even just what you said, Al, I think that right now religions aren't carrying the word of Jesus, to be quite honest. And even if you just want to take religion out of this, the idea that someone has to lose for someone to win is a very, excuse me, but a very male way of looking at the world. There was a study, very macho. Yeah. There was a study that happened over and over again where they took, I think it was a hula hoop, and put men in a circle and had them pass the hula hoop from one to the next over and over around, and they timed it. And each man, kind of did his own thing and passed the hula hoop around. And when they did it with women, they watched how each other did it, they talked, and they moved it faster. And the thing is that that's a very it's a different way of looking at the world where there's plenty of seats at the table. And if you want to have a different view, that's fine. But when you base your view on fear that you aren't going to have enough, that seems to me to be the crux of the problem, is a fear-based view of the world versus, I guess, a more bountiful view of the world. Does that make any sense to you, Al?
No, absolutely, absolutely, and I think you're right, and I think that the colonialism was, very much a part of that masculine bias. I mean, for years in this country, women were not allowed to vote, or were expected to ask their husbands how they should vote, or all that sort of thing. I think about the story of the loaves and fishes, and the story talks about all of the people that were fed that day with the what was it, 3 fish and 4 loaves of bread or something like that. And the line is, there were so many people fed that day, not counting women and children.
That's so interesting.
There's a book that was written by a nun on that subject, and what she was saying was, what probably happened, the miracle was that when they started to share the fish and the bread, other people there started sharing what they had. Who would think that a mother would come to some sort of event where she didn't bring food for her family, for her children, and everything? And the miracle was sharing everybody's stuff. And that's why they could collect so many baskets afterwards.
That's it. That's exactly it. There's plenty here on this earth, and there's people suffering because they don't have medical care. They don't have food. And there's a few trying to win the game of who dies with the most toys wins. And, I'm sure it breaks every mother's heart, and maybe every father's heart as well, or sons. But the women that I talk to, it's just, it's frightening, and it's sad. And I think sometimes that it's a last gasp of this structure. But I don't know how long this last gasp will last.
Well, Christopher, what a session.
Heavy, brother. Lots to talk about.
Yep. Your homework assignment.
Yes, sir.
Everyone, is to continue thinking about this and what you need to do in order to improve things with the people that you deal with. I'm going to conclude by just reviewing quickly the upcoming main events. Next week, February 20th, the main event 151, Flova AI demonstration given by Nina Sabrina Caballero and Margareta Barreto. The 27th of February, the main event is your results of accepting the Big Al Big AI challenge of you in the Winter Olympics. And we've had already, I've posted 5 different things that people have submitted on my LinkedIn profile. March 6th, the main event is going to be another, discussion topic. How many AI subscriptions are too few, and how many are too many?
Great question.
That depends on where you're at, whether you're a professional, whether you are a person just trying things out, or whether you're a hobbyist, whatever. But we need to talk about it because there's too many things out there, and if you go to try them and you forget to cancel the thing, if you're in a situation like me and I'm a professional and everything, I'm spending close to $500 a month on subscriptions when I throw in Adobe and Zoom and my web hosting and everything. March 13th, the main event is To Be Determined. And March 20th, the main event, 155, is an interview with Alwyn Velasquez. March 27th, the main event, 156, will be sharing your results of accepting the March Big AI challenge. And speaking of the March challenge, when you come on the 27th of February for the looking at everybody's Winter Olympic results of their doing that challenge, I will be announcing what the March challenge will be also. So further incentive for you to show up. Thank you, everybody. Christiaan,
thank you. Thank you, Al. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, everybody, for giving us your time.